In this video we are sharing with you for the first time the wisdom found in the book Change by Akif Manaf, the world-renowned author of nearly 100 unique books. What is change? Change is the phenomenon of changing as an outcome of an action. All differentiations that emerge during a certain process can be called change. The fact that an object acquires a different value in respect to a certain quality over time is an indication of change. The concept of change is closely linked to the phenomenon of movement. At the objective level, movement triggers and enables change. In fact, it can even be said that movement is the change itself. Change is the continuous differentiation of phenomena and objects at the material level. There are two types of changes, quantitative and qualitative. In general, quantitative changes lead to qualitative changes. This type of transformation is determined by the laws of dialectics. A variational relationship emerges through the law of dialectics. Change has a special form. Progress, or development, is the other name of this form. If change becomes the subject of a developmental process, quantitative changes will lead to the emergence of new qualities. The truth is that every development is a change, but not every change is a development. For example, a building is subject to change over time and collapses one day. In other, therefore, change may cause both development and decline. In this sense, change is a more comprehensive phenomenon compared to development. This is because change causes both development and decline. However, development only involves change. Development of change. On the other hand, change can lead to both development and decline simultaneously. For example, a person may develop one's power by going through change and then cause one's own decline by misusing this power. Without exception, all objects and phenomena in the universe are continuously going through change. This change is a prerequisite for the process of acquiring knowledge. While acquiring knowledge, certain physiological changes occur in the human being's nervous system. A person's acquisition of knowledge depends on these changes. In fact, the knowledge acquisition process consists of learning about changes. In other words, that knowledge acquisition results from a series of changes, and this change of knowledge leads to the development of knowledge. Nowadays, changes are occurring rapidly in the consumerist society through technology. Humans are obliged to keep up with this rapid change in order to survive. Adapting to change causes tension. In fact, change and tension are two successive phenomena. Change causes tension, and tension causes change. For example, tension causes outbursts of anger in the human body, and as a result of these outbursts, change occurs throughout the whole body. Change is the characteristic of an object or situation that does not remain the same over time. The truth is that time is the most efficient tool for change. The flow of time enables everything to undergo change. For example, even if one does nothing, one's body undergoes a certain change with each passing hour. Change is the transformation of any system from one state to another over time in a planned or unplanned manner. This means that change can be planned or unplanned. There are idiosyncratic advantages and disadvantages of planned and unplanned change. Planned and unplanned change determine the dimensions of change. The more planned the change, the more dimensional it becomes. Change along the way to spiritual evolution is the most dimensional one. In this universe, there is no change more comprehensive than the change of spiritual evolution. Change can be targeted or aimless. The difficulty of the goal determines the dimensions of change. Difficult goals. Lead to compulsory change. Success in compulsory change depends on the individual's ability to adapt. The greater the difference between the person and the target one wants to achieve, the greater the change. There may not be a consensus on the individual's social environment and goal. This would render change more difficult because the social environment always resists the change of the individual. Types of resistance to change. The human being who pursues personal change is faced with two types of resistance. The first is structural resistance. The second is environmental resistance. In other words, the individual's structure and social environment will resist change. In this way, there are two types of resistance, internal and external. The realization of change depends on the strength and reasons for the resistance to change. Internal or structural. Resistance to change is linked to fear because the human structure is afraid of all types of change. These fears have to do with staying alive because change may complicate survival. Resistance to external or environmental change is related to jealousy. This is because no one wants anybody else to change for the better. Everyone wants to be better than others. Therefore, the main reason for internal resistance to change is fear, and the main reason for external resistance to change is jealousy. Only the human being who is on the path of spiritual evolution can overcome these two reasons for resistance to change and realize an unhindered change. The tool for breaking the resistance to change is determination. When the intelligence awakens and becomes active, determination peaks and the individual breaks all types of resistance to change. In fact, the greatest obstacle to the realization of change is the resistance to change. If you want your life to truly change, you must transform into a captain of change. You should become a captain of change and transcend the limits of resistance by sailing the ship of change through the dimensions of change. Evolution of change. Change can be revolutionary or evolutionary. This depends on the goals of the person. Evolutionary change meets with the least resistance and revolutionary change encounters the most resistance. Humanity has been through many bloody revolutions in the name of change, but none of them have been evolutionary. Revolutionary change strains all internal and external structures. For this reason, it is the one that is met with the most resistance. On the other hand, evolutionary change occurs naturally and automatically. Such change on the path of spiritual evolution is the evolutionary type of change. Change can be at the pace of a turtle's walk or a frog's jump. Most people prefer the frog jump, but the frog has the risk of hitting the wall and hurting itself. The turtle, on the other hand, crawls by the wall and does not suffer any harm. The captain steering the ship of change has to change its speed and direction when faced with an obstacle. This slows down the process of change and results in negative side effects. For this reason, the captain of change should be an expert in the field of change. Change can be scientific, artistic, cultural, religious, and spiritual. The impact of these changes depends on the strategies of change. If the change strategies are not humanitarian, the dynamics of change will be harmful. The methods, driving forces, and structures of change should be determined in the change that is being managed. Depending on the strategy of change, the process of change will be different. Change can be slow or rapid. There are certain advantages and disadvantages to this. Time for change. Change is realized over time, and when the time for change comes, nothing can stop it. Because of this, the timing and stages of planned change are very important. When the time for change comes, it changes the subject forcefully. This is a painful experience. Change can be permanent or temporary. In order for change to be permanent, it is necessary to make preliminary preparations, prepare the environment, and lay the foundations for change. Trust, justice, and transparency are essential to make a positive change permanent. This type of change enables success. If there is no change, there is no success. Change is indispensable for success. In order to be successful, the aim and reason for change must be well understood. In order for positive change to be realized, the individual must be patient and never give up on change. In general, human beings resist change. But why? There are two reasons. The first is habit, the second is worry. A person gets accustomed to the environment one lives in and worries that it could change. Accustomed things are easy, but change is difficult. However, change is a law of existence. Life consists of change, and in this regard, change is an irresistible law. Whoever resists change is overturned by change and is forcefully changed. Everything objective and subjective in nature is continuously undergoing change in every moment. In this regard, it is not very clever behavior to resist change. In the meantime, all living beings have the ability to change in order to stay alive. Without this ability, no one would have survived. The truth is that those who resist change decline, while those who adapt thrive. According to the way nature works, those who resist change die, whereas those who adapt live. This is the universal law. The truth is that laws of societal change are only a reflection of universal laws. Those who know the laws of social and personal change never resist change. Those who do not know resist, and nature continuously forces them to change. Meanwhile, life raises those fools who fight against the phenomenon of change. Human beings are constantly changing internally and externally, whether they want to or not. The environment a person lives in, the social environment one is in, one's living conditions, relationships one establishes, actions one takes, and one's standing in society, and so on are constantly changing. Harmony with the dynamics of change. For living beings to sustain their lives both individually and socially, they must comprehend the dynamics of change and harmonize with the continuously changing conditions. Therefore, a human being's survival is dependent on one's ability to adapt to the changing conditions of life. In fact, in order to sustain one's life, one must adapt to the constantly changing conditions. The person who cannot adapt to change is doomed to lose, whereas the one who adapts is guaranteed to win. The mind is the greatest obstacle to the acceptance of change. Since the mind always stays in the past, it wants the past to be unchanged. But the past has already changed and is now the present. Because of the mind that always thinks about the past, one does not want the familiar milieu and environment to change. This is because the familiar environment gives a feeling of being safe. But change does not inspire confidence. Because of this, human beings want to maintain the status quo they are used to. These efforts to maintain the status quo prevent one from adapting to changing conditions. As the individual tries to maintain the status quo, one resists change and even opposes it. There are many reasons behind the resistance to change. Most of the time, people are not even aware of these reasons. The person resists change, but is not aware of why he or she is resisting it.